All right, the purpose of today's video is to go through and introduce you to some of the key concepts and terms that you need to know as we begin this unit on public speaking. All right, now the first term we're going to talk about is fluency. You can see the definition here is continuity. It means continuity, moving with ease or polished. Really what we're going to look for as we go through this unit is, are you able to give a presentation or a speech and go through the entire thing in a way that looks very smooth. Okay, so it's not choppy in any way. It looks as though it's been rehearsed. Okay, those are the types of things we're looking for. Another key term is volume, and with volume we're talking about the degree of loudness of sound. Right, we want to make sure that you got an appropriate volume. Depending on the room you're in, for example, if we're presenting in my classroom, the volume changes compared to going into the Innovation Center. Okay, so we need to adjust those a little bit. You're going to have to be a little bit louder in the Innovation Center than you will in a classroom. All right, now the next two terms actually get confused quite a bit. Enunciation means that you're clearly saying the sounds and syllables in words. Okay, so that means that it's not mumbled and things aren't kind of running together. That's different from pronunciation. Pronunciation means you're speaking words as they're meant to be spoken. For example, is this a tomato or a tomato? Okay, the next set of concepts deal with eye contact. So eye contact itself is the idea of making a visual connection with the individuals in the audience. This can be really tricky for kids as you're just getting used to giving a presentation up in front of the class. A lot of times what we'll see are kids as they start looking around the room. If their friends are out there, they'll start to get nervous and maybe laugh or giggle a little bit. There are some things that we can do to kind of help you with that. We want to make sure that people feel like you're looking right at them because it makes the presentation personal. So one really good technique to use if you feel like making eye contact is going to be hard for you is to pick objects around the room. So get there a little bit early, look around, see what's either right above the person's head or possibly right over their shoulder. Okay, so you want to go through and pick those objects, and if you can't look someone in the eye while you're giving your presentation, go right above their head. In most cases, they're going to be far enough away from you they won't be able to tell the difference. Okay, but it allows you just to kind of connect with the audience. We don't want to do things like, for example, if you were in my classroom, looking at the pennants would be a really bad idea because pretty soon your whole audience is going to turn around and start looking up towards the ceiling to try and figure out what you're looking at. So that's why you want to pick those items that are right above people's heads. Okay, now the next two terms get confused quite a bit. The first one is pacing. Pacing is the degree of quickness with which one delivers a speech. A lot of times we'll see kids get nervous and all of a sudden, they've practiced and rehearsed and they've got it down. It's like 4 minutes and 50 seconds. Then they give their presentation, and when we time it during class, they come in at like 2.5 to 3 minutes. Okay, and that just happens because they start to get some adrenaline, they get nervous, and they start talking really, really fast. Okay, so we want to practice this to make sure that we're delivering our speech in a way that is getting our message across, okay, and that we've spaced that out enough to make sure, because we don't want you to lose points on any presentation because you talked really fast. Okay, now you want to be aware as you're doing your presentation, like if you've built in time for people to ask questions, if you say something funny, that you kind of pace that out so that you're not talking over the audience. So if they laugh and you're still talking, you're going to want to pause just to make sure that they can still hear everything that you're talking about. You can also pause in order for the audience to absorb important points. Okay, and I'm going to show you some samples of speeches where the presenter does that. Movement is about changing physical location or your physical position on a stage or in front of a classroom. Sometimes we talk about working one side of the room versus the other side of the room. Sometimes kids will get really comfortable and they'll want to go onto one side of the room and just stay there. Or they'll get up around the screen or a podium. Common in my classroom for kids to sit down where the computer is and just try and hide behind it. A lot of times when you present, it's great to move around the room. Okay. In fact, there are some people, in fact, I used to do this when I was young. First presenting in front of a class, I would walk a little bit from side to side in front of the room just because it seemed to calm my voice a little bit and it didn't seem quite as shaky. So it's a technique you can use, but we want to make sure that it's kind of purposeful and it doesn't become a distraction while you're presenting. Okay, expressions and gestures. Okay, facial expressions are ways that you can communicate ideas and emotions non-verbally by contorting your face, right? Lifting an eyebrow, okay, stopping and looking up to the ceiling while you're thinking. Okay, those are the kinds of things that we're talking about. Okay, that's a little bit different from what's called gesticulation. Gesticulation is the act of making gestures or moving one's body parts. Usually, I put on here, usually arms, hands, legs, as a means of expression. Right, I always think about the person who is thinking, and they put that hand right up on their chin. As they kind of rub their chin to demonstrate that they're thinking, or they put a finger up next to the temple on their head, so that again you kind of create a movement that helps make your point. Okay, that's what gesticulation is. Okay, now the next three all kind of go together, okay, because this is, the audience is kind of a basic one. Okay, the audience is just really the people who are listening to and or viewing your presentation. So you have to be kind of careful with this one because, most of the time the bulk of your audience is going to be other students, but you can't leave out that teacher who's sitting in the back of the room who's also going to be grading you. So we have to keep both of those in mind. Now, the reason why I group that with the next two, tone, and then we'll go and put diction up there. Tone is the expression in one's voice generated by altering pitch. In other words, can I change and emphasize things through volume? If I say something really quiet to emphasize something, okay, those are the kinds of things that you're looking at with tone. Diction is word choice. So you want to make sure that you choose words that are appropriate for the audience that you are talking to. If you use a lot of slang terms and things like that, great for the students. They'll know exactly what you're talking about, but your teacher may not. And you want to make sure that you don't do something that or say something that really connects with the audience and the teacher is sitting there and really doesn't have any idea what you're talking about because that's not a word that they're familiar with. Okay, so we just have to be a little bit careful with those, and sometimes even if you use a slang term, right after that, say what it would mean, like so the adults would understand. Okay. So just keep that in mind as we start going through this. All right, impromptu. Okay, impromptu speeches, okay, or what are also called extemporaneous speeches, means speaking with or presenting with little or no preparation. So we will do some impromptu speeches. Okay, we call them fishbowl speeches, and what will happen is I'm going to give you a topic and 1 minute to prepare, and then you have to do a speech for 1 minute on that topic. Okay, now they're nothing overly hard. They're really designed to help you kind of get over stage fright. So we'll give you a topic and you'll have to get up in front of the class and just talk for a minute. Now it'll be a little uncomfortable because if you talk for 10 seconds and stop, we're going to have you stand up there for the next 50 seconds until your time's up. So we'll go through right before we do these and I'll give you some tips on how to organize it to make it a little more manageable for you. Okay, but we want to make sure that you're prepared for that one. All right, visual aids. Visual aids turn out to be a really important part of speech making and presentations, especially in middle school and high school. Visual aids are any visual prop or visible prop or component of one's presentation. So this could be posters, charts, PowerPoints, media clips, anything that's designed to help you get through your presentation. Now, what you want to keep in mind with a visual aid is that this is, it should have just a little bit of information on it. It's just up there to remind you what you're talking about. Okay? It could also be like if you're doing data, like kind of in the picture here, she's got a chart up there. It can help provide a visual for your audience so they understand what it is you're talking about. But we never want to put so much information on our visual aid that either it's hard for you to get through and explain the information or the audience gets caught up on everything that's in there. Again, I'll show you some really good examples of visual aids in some sample speeches that we're going to watch in class. All right, so that's it as far as the terminology and the basic concepts go. You may want to go back and again, write all these down, put them in your notes so that you're all ready to go with those things. It's best if you get these done by the end of the week so that when we start talking about these speeches in class in the next week or so that you're really prepared for that. All right, we'll see you guys in class.